Hello, I'm Sadie Chrestman,
I'm Matthew Evans.
and we're here on Fat Pig Farm in southern Tasmania, in Lutruwita. We'd like to acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal people, the Palawa, who are the traditional owners and continuing custodians of this island. We'd like to acknowledge the elders of this community and also the elders of Aboriginal communities all around Australia. Past, present, and emerging, who altered and are continuing to alter this landscape in so many important ways in order to feed themselves and have been feeding themselves sustainably in this part of Lutruwita for 42,000 years. We feel like this acknowledgement is particularly important when we talk about nature and the environment, because we need to start thinking in these sorts of timescales if we want to preserve this country for our children hundreds of generations into the future. And it is this focus on the future is why Matthew and I, were so delighted to have been the judges this year for the Environment Award for Children's Literature. And here we are at the end of the second ever Nature Book Week, presented by the amazing, brilliant, hardworking people at the Wilderness Society. And we're here today to congratulate the nonfiction winners. So the nonfiction winner is The Fabulous Tree Beings. It's by Raymond Huber and Sandra Svergnini. And we are here with Raymond and Sandra, which is quite exciting for us because we really, really love this book. And so hello, Raymond and Sandra. And how are you guys feeling about winning this Environmental Award for Children's Literature?
Hi, Sadie and Matthew and Sandra. I feel very honoured. Thank you. Yeah, I was quite surprised to hear the news. Yeah, it's very exciting.
And
Sandra, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just really touched that the book's made its way into the hearts of other people and hopefully made them think.
So I noticed when we first got the book, and I didn't read the small print, but it doesn't say who's the author and who's the illustrator. So fill us in on how the process that process came about.
Well, I'm the author and Sandra is the illustrator, and this is actually the first time we've met, which is...
It is. Other than emails, yes.
Other than emails, which is great. So, thank you for bringing us to this interview. And what was the question? About who was?
Yeah, who's the author and who's the illustrator?
Yeah.
So, well, actually, can I change the question then slightly, Raymond and Sandra? Which is, you have never met until this moment on Zoom. This book feels to us like an incredibly collaborative book. You know, the fact that on the front cover it says Raymond Huber and Sandra Svergnini. It doesn't say author and illustrator. And the book itself, the design of it, the way the text and the illustrations all come together, it really feels like a fantastically collaborative book. And so I'd love to know how it came about and how you worked together via the internet, I presume, to put it all together.
Well, that's how it felt to me too, that it seemed like a collaboration more than any of the other books I've done. You know, I've done sort of fiction books and things where you just write the text and send off a Word document. But this one felt like there was this kind of equal contribution, like Sandra's illustrations, which she did an incredible job of interpreting the parts, picking out the parts of these people's lives, say, and aspects of trees that I thought that were impossible to illustrate. As you saw one of them there with the underground fungi, and yet, you know, she brought that to life. And I'll talk about some of my favourites later. But yes, and I think it's Mark Thacker, who's the designer, also. The weight of his role in it is also equal too, because he's arranged the pages so to highlight important information or an important picture, and made, you know, just brought that balance. And the publisher, should mention Exile as well, in the way they have worked with me in developing the book. Yeah, so really a collaboration. And how that
Wow. So
happened? Well,
yep, go ahead.
it happened as if by magic. We didn't actually communicate a lot about different aspects of that, except to say that I suspect that the designer and Sandra had you can ask her about that. I think they had quite a bit more communication between the two of them. Yeah.
So Sandra, did the manuscript arrive fully formed, and then you were left, it was then left up to you to interpret it?
Mostly, yes. Yeah, trees were already one of my passions. So when I was offered this manuscript to illustrate, I was quite excited, I must say. But Raymond's gave me the most inspirational stories to work with, so it made an absolute joy. And as he said, Mark also, could work with, help me with some of the illustrations to work in different ways. So, it's just a pure joy to work with.
And how did you come up with your like like in terms of choosing your materials to draw the pictures in the book? Was that something that came out of the text, or do you always work in the same medium?
Well, yes, I do work across a few different mediums. I traditionally am a watercolorist. I've got a history in botanical illustration, and I felt the different stories warranted a few different styles of illustration just to keep the interest there, especially for younger people. Hence why I would read through and try and work out what story would suit a different style best. So that's how I worked through it. One of the stories, The Forest Maker with Tony Ronaldo, I just felt that need to be more earthy, so I kept that more simplistic. It's pretty well watercolor and photoshopping mostly.
And that's really clear when you read the different stories. You do enter these very different worlds.
Thank you.
I think both stories, but in beautiful illustrations, and they are very different. It's really quite lovely.
There seems to be this remarkable synergy, and it surprises me that there wasn't more of a conversation between yourselves and you went through the designer. But it means that the text must have conveyed so much. It conveys a lot to us, but it's obviously conveyed so much to the designer and to you, Sandra, to be able to produce a book of such beauty and of such substance at the same time. And it feels like there's this real synergy. When we were, Sadie and I were talking about it, who was the author, who was the illustrator, we wondered if there was, if you had collaborated more, because it felt like there was this beautiful line that you thread between, between the illustrations and the story. And so I think it's pretty remarkable that you've managed to achieve this. And I have to say, the cover, that sort of cloth feel cover. It makes me just want to pick and touch it, and I guess that's the beauty of the printed word, as opposed to the things that we can find on the internet. Well, just really briefly, Raymond, if you don't mind, what was your favourite story, from the research you did for the book?
That's such a hard question, but the one that I always say is the most miraculous to me was the one that almost didn't make it in, and that Sandra mentioned there, and that's the Tony Ronaldo story. I found that literally at the last minute, and it just astonished me, the whole thing, how he found this literally an underground forest growing in the desert, and how it has transformed the lives of millions of people and continues to do so. By allowing these trees to regrow, it restored the farmland, and that's helping to break the hunger cycle throughout Africa and other countries now. Just a really inspiring, lovely story, and that's my favourite illustration, actually, Sandra, that one with the goats. And the reason I love it is because of its simplicity, of the lines you've used, and that they're just beautiful.
And Sandra, from your perspective, is there a story or an illustration that you got more joy from, or the most joy from, that you'd like to point out?
Definitely the Forest Make, the Tony Ronaldo story. For some reason, that really resonated with me. So I'm glad that did end up in the book. I didn't know it wasn't going to. I think one of the, and I've just got to open the book up to see what page, the Big Ideas 3, which is the trees. Quickly, this page here.
Yeah.
With the insects and the trees, I just absolutely love doing that. And it was quite a lesson for me just to learn about the different barks on trees. So that would definitely be my favourite illustration.
It's a beautiful one.
Hold it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That way.
But having said that, they're all, I loved every one of them anyway. So.
We're hopeless.
That's my other favourite one, Sandra, with the
Oh, okay. That was one of the very first ones I did.
Reaching out for the fruit. It's very Sistine Chapel, that one. And I like that I like that without me telling you, you somehow realised that that was a particular type of fig tree, and you actually got that fruit exactly as it was in Jane Goodall's book. So, how did you know that?
You're obviously both very good at your jobs.
Just instinctual, I think. Yes. I think just the whole book, it spoke to me. It was just, it was so beautifully written, and I learnt a lot from it. I learnt a great deal just illustrating it. So, it's been fabulous.
Now, you've never met. We've got good news for you. You only live one street apart.
Yes.
That was a joke.
I don't know where you live.
And we're both in lockdown, probably.
Oh, well, yes. So many.
Yeah.
Yes,
We just learn to do things differently, don't we?
Yeah.
And tell me, have you both got other projects on the go at the moment?
I have. I am illustrating and writing my own book that's been accepted by a publisher. I can't tell anything more about it, but it's once again a slightly environmental. I like to, because of my style of illustration, I really like to stay in amongst the environmental and nature themes. So I've got something happening there.
Great, fantastic. You can't give us a hint? The environment?
No. No, not at this point. No. It's just early days yet.
One of the things I'm doing is revising I did a series of books for children on English and science, and they're about 10 years old, and science dates surprisingly quickly, so I'm up revising all of those. And at the moment, last year, particularly during the COVID outbreak, there was a lot of demand for that kind of work-at-home book for children, so it's good timing for revision.
Yeah, great. So how many books
have you done? Say it would be lovely. Sorry. I was just going to say it would be lovely to be able to work with Raymond again, so hopefully down the track.
That would be great.
Oh, it's a marvellous book. I would love to see if you two work together again, what you would come up with. The other thing that's interesting about this book, because it's ostensibly a book for children, it says the Environmental Award for Children's Literature, but it feels much bigger than that. This actually feels like one of those beautiful picture books that you keep, and you keep and pass on to your grandchildren, or keep and enjoy reading as an adult with your children. I think you get so much from it. So you both have done books for children before. Do you think that you consciously write, and let's start with you, Raymond, and then I'll ask Sandra the same question. Do you consciously write for children, Raymond, or do you feel that you write for a broader audience? It just seems to end up in the children's section.
I think I do write for an inner child that I have, who's about 10 years old. and I can't seem to get away from that. Probably a psychologist would have a field day with that answer, but yeah, I write so that it's at a level that that child in me can understand. But also, I guess I'm writing to communicate something that has excited me as an adult in say, science particularly. And I'm thinking, how can I communicate that to other people in my own words, that excitement? And yeah, I guess that will come across to that 10-year-old as much as to an adult, I hope.
Yeah, that's interesting that you're writing for your own inner child as opposed to a child, an unspecific child out there in the world. And that's probably why we end up with something quite universal like this. That's lovely. What about you, Sandra? Do you find that you write, or well, you do write, so write and draw specifically for children, or who do you have
I
in
think
mind?
so. I think my answer would be very similar to Raymond's, whereas the inner child, again, I've always had a fascination with nature and trees and science, and I've always illustrated. My parents saved pictures of me doodling when I was 2 or 3 years old, and quite often trees as well. So, yes, I'd like to think we can really bring the interest to books, children, through the children, and teach them things too. So, but keep it interesting.
And I get that. Yeah. So that's another question I wanted to ask you. Just teaching children is. What's your hope for this book? It must be quite hard. Like, you put all of this work into a book and then you send it out into an unknown world. Do you allow yourself to have a dream for the book?
I suppose that the knowledge will be taken up by the children and passed on, and there'll be a lot more appreciation for trees and nature generally. I think it's going that way again for the children. I've got 2 adults now, grandchildren, and I'd love to think that they can still keep that in touch with nature, and they love books like Tree Beings, even though they're a bit younger. So yeah, I just like to think that it's a book that's of interest to quite a few ages too. So.
What about you, Raymond? Do you have a dream for the book?
I do tend to just let books go once I've finished them, but this one has been different, as I said before, about the collaborative thing. It's been very interesting that I've kept coming back and actually reading parts of this book again myself, which I've never done with any of my other books. I just never want to look at them again. But I look at this and I think, I can't even think that I wrote it, but it's the information, the things about trees and this people's stories I do find very inspiring, and I think that's why I keep coming back to it to look at it myself, because those things have changed the way that I've learned about trees, have changed the way I see trees now. And recently I went into the garden to cut down a tree and I couldn't do it. I ended up pruning it. So that ancient pear tree is going to live another day. But I just realised how that they are a lot like beings. I suppose as far as what Sandra was saying, I find that interesting what she said about the younger generation. And my hope is that this next generation that's coming up, they are a lot more connected to the environment, or a lot of the ones I'm in contact with, and I'm hopeful that they will, when they become the politicians and things, that they will not allow this constant deforestation to go on as it continues to, even in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that the book is, as a grown up, is just such a cool thing to read. And I think from what I loved about it, and I think probably what a lot of the people will love about it, is it makes science cool and interesting, and beautiful at the same time. And so it makes it, you're telling the stories and showing the images that make us fall in love with nature. So thank you to you both for that.
You're welcome. And a bit of fun too, I hope.
Well, that's why it's cool. It's not sort of dry and boring. It's great fun.
I have one last question. Do you have another question?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
I have one last question for both of you. So, Sandra, maybe we'll start with you. Do you have a favourite tree, like an actual living tree out there in the world somewhere that you love in particular?
I actually live right across from a rainforest. I can look out my window and see right into a rainforest. I love pandanus. I don't know if it's classed as a tree, to be honest. Raymond, you probably better answer that than me, but I just find them absolutely fascinating and almost ancient, very ancient feel to them.
Yeah, they're very beautiful. The shapes, those beautiful leaves, and I don't know if they're classified as a tree either, but they are an ancient. As I understand,
They
it,
are,
quite
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Do you have pandani where you are?
We are just building at the moment, and I have a special place in the garden where we're going to put one. So
great.
There are plenty in the rainforest here.
And what about you, Raymond? Do you have a favourite tree?
I'm looking at it right now out my window, and you'll be interested to know that it is an Australian tree. Much as I love New Zealand natives, I'm not just saying this because this is an Australian interview, but it's called, I think, a bloodwood tree, or Corymbia is its scientific name, but it used to be classified as a eucalyptus, and it has the most magnificent flowers every year, or every second year it seems, that attract millions of bees. And it also has this beautiful blood red sap, so that it sometimes bleeds when it's wounded, as it was when the grandchildren picked off some bark last year. Yeah, it's a beautiful tree.
That is the bloodwood is a really gorgeous, gorgeous tree. I do love bloodwoods. Beautiful. I don't have any other questions. Do you have any other questions?
No, I want to sit down and have a cup of tea with them both and ask them lots and lots of stuff, but it wouldn't be that interesting for the viewers. So, when none of us are allowed to go visit.
Yeah, I know. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for your time. And we really look forward to this book becoming the great success that it deserves to be, because it's quite beautiful.
Thank you. It's very exciting. Can I just make a quick thank you to Raymond for writing such a beautiful book, and to Excel Publishing for having faith in taking on my illustrations. So.
Yeah, I think, and for Excel Publishing for publishing such a beautiful book, and kind of putting the effort into it, because it is just a gorgeous object, tactile object, as Matthew was saying earlier, that's beautiful to hold. And so, great kudos to the designer, Mark, as well.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Congratulations, guys. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.